Okay, hello people. It's Jesse again. I think my Facebook name is Jazzy. Okay, it's Jesse again, and in the Nigerian blogosphere, it's one day, two problems. Back in the days, we used to have one day, one problem, but it seems nowadays it is one day, one problem. Uh, we were talking about the Nigerian politicals uh, incident yesterday about the death of Muhammadu Buhari. And today we're going to be talking about the Yoruba. We're going to be talking about the Awujale. Um, and then we're going to be talking about the total system, the Yoruba belief, system that governs our thinking, our acting, and the way we see the world, the way we perceive the world in which we live. Um, it is staggering the level of degradation that the Yoruba have consistently been through. Since we lost the Oyo Empire, it's been a steady decline, a total steady decline. So in the modern era, the only kind of spark of brilliance that we ever had was in the Second Republic, with Awolowo. That's it. And some people might want to agree or disagree, but that's up to them to do their research and see the state of things. And to give a background of the issue, actually, the Awujale uh, is a Yoruba king, a principal Yoruba king. So in Yoruba land, there are core, kings. There's a hierarchy, to kingship in Yoruba land, and I think he's up there as one of those, top, kings. And he spent about 64 years on the throne because he was kind of like um, he got to the throne around in the 60s, if I can remember very well. And when he got there on the basis that this is Yoruba land, this is Yoruba culture, and there are certain guiding principles, to becoming a king in Yoruba land because the kind of kingship that you got in Yoruba land was primarily produced and validated, backed by the Yoruba culture or the Yoruba system of belief. And it's quite unique. So I'm just laying this background, into something that I believe might take me a while to finish. It's not something I can do in 10 minutes or 20 minutes. So I'm laying this background to let you understand that in Yoruba land, we have a system of belief and a system of seeing the world. And that has been there since antiquity, since nobody knew. It's something that started gradually, was part of a bigger, global view. And it started gradually, and it had what you call Deleuzian intensities. That means it's gone through the crucible. Some things have been added, something has been taken away due to certain historical happenings or development or education or whatever it is. So through all of these reiterations of culture, we've refined what is called the Yoruba system and the Yoruba system of belief. And central to that are the things we do around how we eat, how we travel, how we perceive our state in the global order of things, and especially how we are led and how we follow. So that was the basis on which. So I'll say it this way: how we are led as a system of governance. So a king will be produced, and there will be the kingmakers who are like, let's say, your modern day legislative arm of government. So they will do things and all of that. And if you look at all of the systems, like if you have the people who do oral system, or these people say Aiwo and all of that, those are like arms of government of the Yoruba system. So for instance, a lot of people do not know that the Shonkono people are actually the public health officials in Yoruba land. So if there was an outbreak, they will say to people, don't come out, don't come out. And they're the ones who, they have this knowledge, of vaccination. They're the ones who actually, it was a Yoruba enslaved guy who taught the Americans how we vaccinated. So the Oro people, they had that knowledge. So when there's an outbreak, they're the ones who go into the houses, restore order, take out the dead people and bring them back in. And when they're doing that, they require you not to be in a situation where you get yourself infected. So they they say, don't come out and all of that. So what they used to do has become a tradition, because back in the days, you could not tell people everything you knew. Knowledge was actually power back in the days. So all of the things they say, oh, Afegbe Oro, we want to do this ceremony, don't come out and all of that, came out of that initial order of maintaining, of governing, Yoruba land. And for us as followers, we have a code that has been refined, for ages. It is called the Omoluabi code. And that is how you're supposed to interact, social interaction, codes and principles. That is what guides, your association in that, Yoruba society. You must have seen it. So they would say, all of the other tribes would say, we prostrate to greet our elders. Because in the Yoruba cosmology, the respect of those who have been before you is key and is paramount, because they the custody of culture, is passed down from one generation to another. So in Yoruba land, if you are 5 years, if you are in that age group, that is just 5 years in between all of you, you are considered as age groups. And you find these things all over Africa. So it's not only the Yoruba that have that. So that is the background. So let's now go back. Let's go back in the day. This order that we've got, this culture that we've got, where did it come from? And how has it been over all of these years? So the Yoruba have been, nobody knows, but the state of scholarship that we've got is that the Yoruba and a people that were somewhere in and around the Sudan region. If you look at our language and our culture and the things that we do, it's probably a section of the people who were in Nubia, who built Nubia. Nubia was in the Sudan, region. And if you look at the civilization of Kemet, the civilization of Kemet actually came out of, the lower Nile. It's just like today you have the America, you have the United States of America. And you and I know that United States of America is a culmination of the European civilization. So there were people who inhabited America, before Columbus and all of these guys, went into the Americas and slaughtered them off and took control of that place. And who are the guys who took control of that place? It was the guys who left Europe. They left mainland Europe. If you go to America, ancestry.com, you're going to see the Scots, the English, the Germans, the Irish, the Portuguese, the Swedes, the Netherlands, people, the Holland, people, Dutch, they call them. And all of these European, the Russians, they're the ones who populate America. If you take Donald Trump, for instance, he has his ancestry in Scotland. His dad and granddad was from Scotland. Biden, his ancestry is Irish. So we will not go into what, how some of them got there anyway. The Irish, for instance, they had a long-running battle with oppression with the English. And then when there was a famine, the English took away their food sources. And that's how people don't realize how names come about. Irish potato. It was like they took their mainstay, their staple foods that they grew. England was taken away by force. So they introduced to them this crop from South America who nobody wants to eat. And just to say, okay, guys, you're poor, eat this food. And then they started to eat it and they did quite, okay with it. And over the time, people will say, oh, the potato is the Irish potato. Yeah. So America, coming back to I like to digress a little bit. Coming back to what we've got. America was the culmination of the individual European civilization, which started with who? Which started with the Macedonian Greek civilization. The peak of the European, powers coming into global reckoning was late in the day. They were the last people, to actually come into the global reckoning of power. And it started with Philip of Macedonia gave birth to Alexander. They call him Alexander the Great, but if you're African, you should never call him Alexander the Great. And the rise of Greece was actually at the twilight, the end of the great black global power. So that was the situation. So if you look at, coming back to Kemet was a crowning glory of the African, indigenous African civilization. So I'm just trying my best not to go into because there are so many layers, so many discursive layers that different scholars might come and, there will be arguments and all of that stuff. But I'm just trying to go around the macro, historical documentation. So now Kemet was the crowning glory of the lower Nile civilization. So if you go to Zimbabwe, so that's why today when you see the Zulu, some South Africans, the way they dress, and you go back to Kemet and you look at some of those paintings, you're going to find, some of it there. Some of the cultural continuation, you're going to find it there. If you go to Kenya, you're going to find them there. If you go to Ethiopia, you're going to find them. So all of these cultural continuation that made up Kemet, which we'll get to how it became Egypt, was by the people in the lower Nile regions. And you can see from the history of the Pitas. The Pitas are the people, that, the Greeks call pharaohs. Your pharaoh was called the Pita. And in the history of the Pitas, you had Pitas from Sudan, which is uh, Nubia, and then you have those who are from there. So it's like you have some Aksumites, Ethiopians. You have some Libyans. Libya was black, and so if you go back in history, so that I need to get this out of the way. Go back in history, everywhere in the world, the migration out of Africa made the place black. So if you go to the Indus civilization, the core of the Indus civilization that you found today was black. So the caste system you find in India was, a reversal of what the original thing was. So if you go to China, the Qin dynasty, you see that they were black people. In fact, if you go on the BBC website, I'm not, given to, what do you call it? I love research and I love proper academic research. Go on to BBC website, do your Google search. They said the first humans to be in the Americas, black. So it follows that the great migration out of Africa. So I came into this when I was 16 because I used to study a lot of atlases and maps. And there was a guy who died, left a book. It's called 1,000 Greatest Men That Ever Lived. And I started to look up their pictures and all of that and all of that and all of that. So Jesus was like, it was like out of the 1,000 list, it was only picked up at number 600 or something like that. Anyway, the great migration out of Africa meant that black people went everywhere. So the European gene, the white gene that you see today, came into being around 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. Yeah, that's what the researchers, are saying. Anyway, tracing back, let's leave the global thing, tracing back, Kemet. If you understood, or if you understand that America is an amalgamation of different European tribes, and they found a way to run the American civilization, and they're dominating and controlling the world. Didn't matter if they came from Poland or from Germany, from England, from Scotland, from Ireland, from Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Norway. It didn't matter. They are there in America today running the show. So what do they call themselves? Americans. So it's the same way when you see the great Zimbabwe civilization, you see the Nubians, you see the Lebu, you see all of these people, and you say, who are you? And they say, oh, we built Kemet. Because, it was the amalgam of all of these, black African, tribes, that built Nubia and then went up to build, Egypt. So it was in Egypt that Nubia and Egypt, and if you look at the Yoruba culture, there's a whole lot of similarities between all of that, and it percolates into all of African culture as well. So, for instance, if you're talking about how we organize our religious order, so in African culture, you cannot really separate. There's no separation of state like we have it with the Europeans. Your spiritual belief is both political and religious. So that's why and when the whites learned from us, they learned the same thing. That was why the Christians in around the world would say, oh, David is both a priest and a king in the Bible. But that was the word of the Peter of the Pharaoh. He was a priest and a king. Although you have the priest, but he's like the chief priest. It's like, so the king in the African Kemetic culture is half God, half man. So that's when you come to Yoruba land and the proper kings of those days, they say, Ikuba Bayi. These are people that are believe that when they assume that kingship, they are no longer just an ordinary man. They're half spirits and half men. So that's the way it is. So that is where we trace what we had, from. And if you look at all of the religious, spiritual things that we do is together. So now this has existed. So let's put some timeline to it. The Kemetic, culture has been put at around 6,000, 4,000, depending on who if you look at the Eurocentric ones that are trying to play down that civilization, they will tell you it's around um, 3,000, 4,000 years. But if you go and listen to your John Eric Clark, Ivan Satima, Dr. Ivan Satima, if you listen to Yosef Yochanan, Ben Yosef Yochanan, all of those scholars, that they've played out of the system, God bless them, they're dead now. They will tell you that the actual timelines, and in the timelines of Kemet, where we came from, we know that the first time that the Europeans came in was towards the last dynastic period of Kemet. So they used to come in as, they would be brought in as slaves, and some of them as traders, and later some of them as scholars. So that's why you have Archimedes was a scholar. All of the Greek scholars actually were trained in Black Kemet. So now let's go into the religious and the religious order, because I'm having to cut a lot of things, because if I need to deal with this, it's going to be in 10 parts and of 1 hour each. So but we can't do that. I'm coming. Just stay with me. I'm trying to give you all of these ramblings, so that we can come to why the Christians and the Muslims in Nigeria needs to stay clear of Isheshe. That's why I'm building all of this background. So, by and large, we find ourselves in West Africa. When civilizations disintegrate, people go away, far and wide. They remigrate and they find themselves. But what they can carry with them is a culture that they have. And you can see that playing today. The Europeans stole people out of Africa. They stole people from Yoruba land. They stole them, stripped them naked. So when you're going on that ship, you're really, really naked. So they took them all the way down to the Americas. Do you know that the Yoruba enslaved people reenacted all of their systems, all of the systems of worship, systems of organization that we had in Yoruba land? They reenacted it overseas. That's why today there are over 110 million under the influence of the Yoruba culture, from Argentina to Belize to Cuba to Trinidad and Tobago to America itself. You will find, so you need to go and see that documentary, Greater Than Africa. So that's an example of people who carry their spiritual belief and their social belief within them as an intellectual power base, and they're able to translate it somewhere else. So if you go to Colombia, so when they say Candomblé, all of this, it has to do with Yoruba culture. You're going to see they worship all the pantheons of gods of the Yoruba. So let's leave the history alone and come back home to the issue of Awujale. When Awujale was selected to become king, he did so on the basis of all of these things I've told you, of history and traditions and systems that have percolated over centuries and millennia. So that is what you carry when you become king. And there are rites, that you do. He did all of that to become the king. And somewhere down the line, he said he's no longer, doing that. So now a lot of people have come out and say, you know what? Anyone is free to become what they want to be, whether you're a Christian or Muslims or whatever it is. Yeah, I agree. But I'm painting all of these stories for you to understand. Now, when you come out as a Christian and say, "Oh, you know what? This is superior. It needs to do this way," and quite a lot of the sentiments I've got, which goes on in Nigeria, is that the Christian God or the Muslim God is the most supreme being and all of that. See, I don't. I leave people to believe what they believe, because I started from somewhere and I've been on this journey to know and to understand for since I was like 12, really. I've been reading. In fact, some of these conversations I've had with my dad sometimes, it's been shocked at the amount of information that I have, because I'm always the one who wants to read, who wants to understand. I want to know why, how, when, where, what. I want to know. So the when you said that, with a lot of the things that you see today is that Christianity is just give or take 2,300, 2,400 old, and Islam is about 1,400, 1,600 years old. That's it. But the iteration of the Yoruba belief and Yoruba spirituality has actually been traced to be anywhere between 5,000 to 8,000, 9,000 years old. And it has a link all the way down to Nubia and Kemet. So that's what I'm trying to say. So when you try to sell this fake posture of superiority, I don't think is right, and there's nowhere, because when you go to the Kemetic culture, and that's where I'm going, you find that they've got something called the now, if you go to Deuteronomy and you see all of these things that are said there about how to make sacrifices, how to appease the gods, how to treat the priests, and all of that. So that was said. If you read Johan Buchanan, go to YouTube. He has 1 hour long, 2 hour long, lectures. It's got about 50 something books on this, and a lot of lectures. Even the story of the Israelites coming to build in Egypt has been debunked, because the story of Moses, the story in terms of timeline, historical timeline, did not show up until the 14th dynastic period of Kemet that they call Egypt. So there's been thousands of years that had gone by. And when you go and read, so I'm not saying do your own research, but I'll give you pointers. I think I'm at 28 minutes now. I will not be able to post this on Facebook. The last one I did was 7 gig, so I had to, so I'll post it on YouTube and then put a link on Facebook. And I'll be able to put all of these research links that I've got there. So the father of history, as they call father of history, that came 1,000 years after the black people have been historically doing their stuff, Herodotus, that's the white world. And if you're schooled outside of Africa in the Western systems, they always like to start their references from the Greek period, from the Hellenic period. And that for me is laughable, because that is like you have 1,000 years to live, and you came around when the whole world was 800 years, and you want to say, oh, you want to define yourself as the leading authority of what has happened in the last 800 years. So that's how referencing everything from the Greek period, stands. There's no university you're going to go to, which is another discursive layer of how the knowledge you get in the certificates you have don't actually define that you have wisdom or knowledge, to be honest. So if you go to Deuteronomy and go and read the account of Herodotus, because he was able to visit Kemet when a lot of Greek people were going there to learn from the black people. So if you the document is there, you read it about bringing the bull for sacrifice, how that must be blameless and stainless. And if you did something otherwise, you're going to be put to the sword. I'm telling you, it's like Deuteronomy is like a carbon copy of what happened thousands of years. In fact, if you read the account, there are certain, people order in Egypt or Kemet that do not offer swine. That is your pork. They don't eat it. They don't offer it as sacrifice. They don't treat people who eat it as equals. The Greek were eating pork. And this sect in Kemet, they would rather not even have anything to do with them, so as to even shake their hands. And today, if you are Islamic, you think that came from Islam. No. So if you go and see all of these things, so if you talk about the Ten Commandments, yeah, it's written in the Bible, but also 2,000, 3,000 years before that, we have what you call the 46 laws of Mahat. MAAT. It's 46 laws of Mahat. Is it 40 laws or 46 laws of Mahat? And in that law, you find everything that is written in the Ten Commandments in there. So if one set of rules have been there for like 2,000 years, 3,000 years, are you going to tell me that the Ten Commandments that came afterward was not a copy, a direct copy of what you have inside, of what you had there? This Muslim or Islamic prayer times of 5 times. Actually, in Kemet, you're supposed to go and read the 46 laws of Kemet 5 times a day. You're supposed to do that. So we need to begin to understand why and how we got to where we are. Identity is a major part of being. If you don't know what your identity is, you're not going to function at optimal levels. And that's what's been happening with Africa. That is why we cannot do jack. We have how many universities in Africa? But because they're not developing along and according to their own ways of seeing the world, their own cosmology, their own spiritual order, then they cannot develop. They cannot. Will always be exit strategy for other people. Exit liquidity. If you trade crypto, you know what exit liquidity means. When people want to cash out, and that's when you're investing, they just take your money and that's it, they cash out. That's what's been happening. So my dad is, you all know, is a reverend. And I grew up within the church, So I'm not, it's a journey for me. Like, at first you're going to be traumatized. You're going to be in a dark place. And I'm not kind of like taking everything off the table. I'm still learning. I want to know beyond what I've been handed, what I've been told. So coming back to, let's localize it now. We've gone, around the world to understand where this is coming from. This is an order that has been from antiquity. The Yoruba, they were part of that order. They are part of that antiquity. So where people miss it is that when they talk about Kemet or Egypt, they're talking about the Americas, America today. They don't talk about the mainland Europe, what happens in mainland Europe. So that's why you don't get enough texts on the Nubians, on the Lebu, on the Yoruba, on the Ghana is not, they just picked that name. You know where the original Ghana kingdom was? Yeah, it's somewhere Mauritania, between Mauritania and northern part of Senegal. So the whole of Africa was populated and they were black. So let us localize it. When you are made a king in Yoruba land, It is not down to you. You are an individual that has been entrusted to take care of a whole basket that contains the spiritual system, the mercantile systems, the legal systems, the belief systems of a people. You and I know that if you are made the Pope and you say, oh, okay, I've been Pope for like 10 years now. Okay, I really don't believe in Catholicism anymore. I believe in Buddhism. And when I die, I want to be buried in the Buddhist way. And I want to practice Buddhism right there in the Vatican. What do you think is going to happen? So the preservation, do you know why we have the kings now? The kings held power pre-colonialism. Yeah, they had all of the power. So they have temporal and they have permanent powers. So what was that for? They were just still the focal point of the preservation, of the operation, of the running of a culture. That's what they are. And that's why in Yoruba land particularly, there's a whole hierarchical order of checks and balances to keep the king from interpreting ancestral rituals or way of life according to individual understanding. Yeah. So if they ask you if you're deviating from the culture and from what we normally would be, they will ask you to commit harakiri. So we're too far gone as Yoruba people, and then people will come up flipsy and say, okay, let's leave all of this legalistic approach alone. Let's look at in terms of you want to have biodiversity in a place. Even you that say you believe in Jesus, let's just make you understand a certain thing. The word Jesus did not exist until the 1600s. There was no letter J until the 1600s. The actual prophet or the Christ who came, his name was Yeshua. Yeshua. So that's another old debate, if Jesus is Jesus that, blah, 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 historical context and all of that. So, and I've also done my research into some of the books that have been excluded, from the Bible and what the gospel of Jesus actually is from the Thomas perspective, from, John perspective and all of these different perspectives. You'll be surprised at how much you've been misled, but that's not the case for today. The case is when you are made a king, why do we have kings? It's for continuity of the cultural continuity. It's for organization. It's to have a pivotal person to just say, okay, this is a guy who is a custodian of this. So don't tell me I'm Ikubabaye or I'm Igbakeji Orisha and all of those nonsense that does not have any meaning today because you make it not have meaning by what you do and what you say. Today, Tinubu is the one that's selecting and deselecting, the so-called kings. And then these ones they call the shawarma kings. Somebody was making that comment yesterday and said, we have all the shawarma kings. And I agree. You have kings who are going into club killers, going to clubs every Friday, doing all of this. And look, you've reduced the culture. You've made it a commodity. You've de-elevated it from that high pedestal of spirituality, of order, of balance, and you have commodified it to the point that it has no meaning anymore. That is what we have all over, Yoruba land. So from the point of diversity, you need to keep your culture, because if you wake up tomorrow and you find out, okay, look at what they've been saying to us now. The white people came into Africa and they said, okay, you know what? Polygamy is not good for you. You need to get one. And then suddenly now they are the ones who are saying, I identify as this, I identify as that, and flip-flopping. And then so what you will tell me is that when the whole world is flip-flopping, you also will be flip-flopping after them. So don't you have a mind of your own to say, this is my culture? And I'll tell you what, if you don't, culture has to be rigid in many ways and only has to give at some points of breakage, because you need solidity for consistency over time. And that's what builds culture. It's not something you can begin to chop and change as you like. Oh, I can die as a Muslim and the Muslims will come and bury me. Do you realize how all of these religions, came about? It is this nonsense about, oh, we're bringing you education and we're setting up schools and all of that. So some of these kings want their kids to gain advantage. So the religious orders will come to them and say, okay, blah, 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 come here and set up a mosque, set up a new thing. So we're not saying it's until today, Yoruba land is a place where you have freedom of worship. You can be whatever you want to be. You can't go up north. You can't go to northern Nigeria. Anywhere there's Islam, you can't go there and say, I want to do this, I want to do that. You are going to be placed under the strictest, rules. We have experts. I've got friends who are in the Middle East. Yes, you can go to a church under, a building and meet at certain times, but you cannot proselytize. You cannot, share your faith. If you do that, you'll be out of the country the next day. So you cannot, the Omoluabi code applies to everyone, just like the leadership code applies to anyone that has been placed in position of leadership. And because we have not been rigid with it, we've not followed what is right. I'm also talking including of the kingmakers, the Afobajes. These are bastards. Let's call a spade a spade. They put in just anybody, riffraffs. As long as there's money involved, you've lost your mind. Have you looked at Yoruba land? Right, in my 50-something years now, right? I have seen Agbero. Do you know, when we used to go to the park in the early 80s, the Agberos, they were beggars. They will beg the drivers, please let me do something for you so that I can gain a little bit of money to feed for today. That was the role they played. And suddenly, this guy started to take power and then colluded with the military, administrators to obtain money to force, all of these guys to register. So everything they do to you initially sounds like convenience. And before you know it, we're at the peak of it now. That's Oluomo has produced so much power, has been put in the hands of Oluomo, and so much money. And people like him, touts. And the billions that is in their hands actually belongs to the local authorities. And these are the money that should actually be used to actually support some of these kings who, I think we have too many kings anyway. We don't need all of this proliferation of insanity. We don't. For those ones who qualify for it, that is what it should get them. So now, if you go every street in Yoruba land, you've got jobless, idle Yoruba sons and daughters. Turn on your social media, you see them, showing their nakedness to the world in the name of generating income from content making. My forte is innovation management. I know data says that there are Yoruba people who are getting into retirement age every year. They're over 10,000, 20,000. And when these guys get into retirement age, they've worked in Europe, they work in America, they are entitled to pension, and they would rather spend their money back home. So imagine that you have just 100,000 Yoruba pensioners from abroad. The average cost, the average pension they get is probably £1,000. £1,000 is how much? 2 million? I don't know. Don't know what the exchange rate is. Now times it by 100. So how much is your budget? That money coming into Nigeria if the kings that are there are knowledgeable and know what they needed to do. They can work with the local governments if they got autonomy. What do these retirees want? They want security, they want peace, they want community, and they want healthcare. Healthcare is the most important things. I dare you to come out to Europe. Some of the most expensive houses you're ever going to find is in the countryside. In our own case, what are your kings doing? They're selling you down the river. Go and look at all the legal mining that is going on in Yoruba land. All of your kings know about it. They're polluting the rivers. They're paying Fulani herdsmen to come into they actually get paid. That's why the Fulani guys are attacking you. But because one of these, that's why I always teach Foucauldian discourse analysis. It's the systems of control. It's a way to shut you down. You're drowning and they're shutting you down. That's what it means. You're drowning and they're using all of these constructs to shut you down. Because if these guys in the Omoluabi code, the role of the leader is to maintain order and custody of traditional rights, systems, and beliefs. The second thing is to maintain some form of economic relevance of their domain. Number 3 is to maintain balance. Balance in the system. Balance. What do you have today? I don't care. Look, all Yoruba, I don't care. See, we've just been, brought up to respect all this culture and not to question it. The same way we question Christianity, the same way we question Islam, is the same way we need to question these traditional institutions. Because if they're not serving you, they're not fit for purpose. The Oni, what is it? Just tell me, have a look at him. I mean, there are 110 million people under the influence of the Yoruba culture. Now, people take all their money and go to Mecca every year. Yeah? People take their money and go to Jerusalem every year. How many people of these 110 million people are coming into Yoruba land? And they want to come. They have the money. They are liquid. They're actually more liquid than you taking the naira and buying all these foreign currency to go abroad to some kind of holy land that never existed when your ancestors built the world. These guys want to come. I remember I put together a structure for that to happen, because you need it in innovation management terms. It has to be in thresholds and what you need to do, to get these ones coming. Let me tell you, if you get 100,000 of these quality people to come and see the culture, see what it means to them, and each one of them is spending a minimum of $2,000, and you're able to capture just half of that into your economy, what do you need oil money for? What do you need oil money for? All of this, local government just sharing money and, we've lost our way. There's so many things, so many ideas in which you can bring your people back from their journey. That's what they tell us. Or I may have missed out. Ilela Bosimi, Ajoabo, I don't know. Anyway, what I mean is we have our people. In the next 10 years, I'm going to be semi-retired. I'm going to have some pension. So you want me to spend it to people I don't know here, or to bring it home where it's safe, in which you can spread that money around. And also some of the knowledge a lot of us have. How is it not formally harnessed to help the generation, to help the people at home? Do you know, quite a lot of us, 60 years old, I know a lot of people who are coming into care work in the UK, in America. We have a lot of people going into healthcare, when these people retire. So there's no local government or state government that is saying, please do come. We will get you, we'll get land, we will build retirement homes, you'll pay for it instrumentally. And when you come, please, if you are able to teach, or if you're able to set up work in our hospital, local hospitals, local healthcare, we will pay you just a token, and we will always appreciate you. A lot of people will go back and give back. But when your kings, they're behaving like touts. They don't have strategic foresight. What do you think is going to happen? So that's how civilizations go down and down and down, and they never recover. They never recover. They will never recover from it. And that's what's happening to the Yoruba, because Agbajo Wolafin Soya. Nobody, can, if your certificates, and we have so many PhDs, we have so many, if it doesn't help you to build your base, build your own, it's useless. Take that paper, tear it up. That's why I love to, when I do all of this research, I like to percolate it and say it to people in the way they need to know. We should have some of these kings actually bring in these youths who are doing Yahoo and say, guys, okay, don't do Yahoo. They should be able to negotiate with all of these Chinese that are doing illegal bunkering or mining, and say, we want you to work with our people. And the money you get, do you know, if you just get all of these guys who have just 100 XRP, saving the blockchain, in the next 10 years, they're going to have serious amount of money in their pockets that will come into that area. So if you go to Switzerland, why is it rich? It got rich out of all of the money that's been hidden there. The money in hiding. That's why Glencore, the guys who own Glencore, right? The mining, they're over there. There's actually a place in Lebanon that's super rich. And the guys who are there, they do nothing in Lebanon. They are in West Africa, in Ghana, Nigeria. That's where they make all the money, and they pack it there. How many of you can go back to your hometown and to your village and live a basic, decent life? None of you. And now the Chinese, they're all there. All of these guys mining, they're there. And Boko Haram, and all they do is, the guys who are producing food, Boko Haram, and in the name of do you know everything is done along religion in Nigeria? Quite a lot of the people who are collaborating with the Boko Haram people, they are Muslims. They are Muslims. So, yeah, it's been a lot of rambling, because when I'm hungry, I do a lot of rambling. But hopefully, as time goes on, I will do structured videos, and stuff like that, and put certain, maybe maximum of 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and put certain order to it. So I'll not be able to do it. So, but what those kind of video does is that it reduces things, and I love to do quite expansive, knowledge gathering and dissemination. So we've seen that to be a Oba in Yoruba land is not something that our ancestor, where did you actually come from? You are part of the repertoire of knowledge, of wisdom from antiquity, all the way from Kemet. And white people learned from that. All of the things that white people had today, what they have today, came from us. Systems of government, architecture. If you go and look at Greek architecture, it's what we had in Kemet. So when people say we don't build anything and then we also say all this nonsense, that's why I'm fearless. I don't care if you've got 40,000 white people or scholars. I'm just going to look at them as you're not up to us. Because when you have knowledge, when you know you're different, you're totally different. That's who we are. So if your Oba knows all of these things, he knows that he's submitting. When they say, okay, why are you not submitting to Isheshe? And they say, I only Elebo. Are you stupid? Are you fucking stupid? The Jews, they do Adiyerano. It's in the Bible. I've told you, I'll put a link there. I'll put the link for what they do there. Halal killing, what do you think it is? What do you think it is? It's daily ebo to make sure that the meat they eat meets the standard that is set by their God. That's what it means. So because you don't know, you don't want to know. And this is what I've told these Isheshe people as well. You need to have a voice. You need to have a system of communication. You need, all of the ones I've seen, they don't have education and they don't even seek it. They don't even have a website. They're not, all of them are just busy trying to dissociate yourself from all of these nasty practices. Dissociate yourself from it, because Isheshe is way more than that. Is a corpus of knowledge, body of knowledge, that there's science in it, there's everything on earth in it, within it. If you think I'm lying, go and do your research. The Nazis, to produce their V2, their rocket science that America took over and said they launched man into space with their space program. It came from these religious texts. They went to India. They took those religious texts from them. There were stories about, flying objects, chariots of fire and all of that. That was where they started from. So that's why I was telling someone that everything started as spiritual. Because if you understand what spirituality means, you will not associate it with what you think it is. There's a story of Shango. What Shango was doing with lighting, practicing, was actually, you are not ready for this. It was bomb making. It was bomb making, but there was an accident. He threw the bomb on his own people, and they said, no, you're killing us, you can no longer. So some of these things that people associate, okay, today now you can fly in a plane. How's it different from chariots of fire? We've got paintings in antiquity of rockets, of flying objects, of weapons of war that we now have today, of phones, mobile phones, and all of these things. We see it. So because we've closed ourselves off to Isheshe, we close ourselves off to the history behind it, of the greatness of our people behind it. Olokun was seafaring. The Lebu people is called Lebia. It's Lebu people that are currently now in Senegal that inhabited that whole area. Tunisia. So it was the invasion of the Greek first, and then in modern times, the Turkic tribes that came over, took over Egypt and put Islam down as the main thing there and started to trade black people as slaves. You need to wake up. You cannot do anything. You cannot grow. You cannot leap out of your ignorance if you don't put light of knowledge back into the place. And it has to start with people who are in the positions of authority. Do you think we're happy seeing Oni of Ife at parties? And it came out, it's showing us it's a film studio in his house and saying that I've been contributing to the studio in Yoruba land, and do you know this? Look, come on now. Are you kidding me? Is that your role? What is your strategic plan? You're supposed to have a plan. Look, let me tell you something. When the US captured Japan, do you know the point of resistance of the Japanese? It was their culture. The Yakuza, the cult. They make the place ungovernable. They route information through the back door, the underground systems. They resuscitated who they were. That was how the Americans just said, we can't do the day-to-day running of this place. Let's turn into politics and rule them from afar. They gave them back their independence because they just made themselves ungovernable. And they resorted back to their own culture to do that. Do you know, in Thailand, when their king died the other day, I had friends in the UK, they made a show of crying for their king because their king, like the Yoruba king is supposed to be, half human, half God. And these kings were the ones who withstood the Europeans, withstood the Japanese invasion as well, working with their own people and that structure too. So what I'm saying to you is that if you no longer want to be the custodians of African culture, we might as well dissolve all the kingship in Yoruba land and pass on the power fully to politicians who know what they're doing, if we get those who know what they're doing. That was what happened in China. We have templates. Look at China. Under Chairman Mao, resuscitated the cultural norms in China. They said, we're done with the European way of thinking, and we're going to install the cultural way. We're going to be the custodian of it, and we're going to maintain balance, and we're going to maintain order and economic opportunity. Now, all the Chinese development you see follow the Chinese tradition to do things. The way they construct their own houses, in Europe, we have, okay, simple flat in London is £300,000, £350,000. Just a simple flat. If you go to China, they'll probably build a whole road for you for that. Why? Because the way they think from their culture shaped the way they developed their technology. If they buy a lot of second-hand Japanese car into the UK, the first thing they have to do is convert the language. The language is Japanese. They have to convert it back to English. They have to spend a lot of money. Do you know what I can do something about language and how they control your thinking and how they are your repository of your knowledge, because you cannot communicate what you have without the language. So this is how you should know that it is not just about symbolism or position and one of our coming out and say Bamini and all of that. To hell with your dad. Because if what you stand for does not represent me as a Yoruba man, then I don't care. You might as well, go to blazes. If it does not coordinate the collective power, the collective wealth, and the collective well-being of everyone involved, you're nothing. I can tell you for free that all the Yoruba Obas are sabotaging Yoruba land. And that's why you take a long time to have, a Yoruba nation. And these guys wanted us to respect what their ancestors, did. Your ancestors fought the Europeans. Your ancestors fought, the Arabs, the Fulani. The Fulani diaspora came into Nigeria. They conquered the Hausas and they sacked Oyo. And then the Ibadan said, no, we ain't having that. And all of the Yoruba Parapo came together, beat them, defeat them. If it had not been for the coming of, the Europeans, we would have beaten them back to Niger. And then there you are. They taught me in my school, if I had not taken my chances and leave Nigeria They will be teaching my kids that Madam Fodio is a freedom fighter, somebody who wanted to annihilate my whole race off the face of the earth, because what they have in their mind is that they're going to capture everyone all the way from Sokoto down to Lagos to the sea. So you're telling me that, right? How is it not a show of shame that you can't even tell the history of your own people because you're in Nigeria? How old is Nigeria? How old is Islam? How old is Christianity? And you want to just make this Foucauldian statement, oh, Elebo ni won, and then you use that to cancel them. And you, that is a custodian of Yoruba, culture, that's supposed to build these museums, where are the museums? That's why I was asking people. Look at Lagos. You go to the museum, they're telling you about Muritala Muhammad. I've taken my kid to so many museums here. You're learning about all the kings in Britain. You're learning about their development. That's what they'll teach you. You go to our own place. So that's why you have all these emergency historians, on Facebook, YouTube, telling you all kind of jazz and nonsense. And then that's why you have all of these dichotomy. And this one is, look at Yorubas. Oni is not respectful to this one, and that one is not respectful to that one, and that, I don't even know, that guy from Iwo and something like that. I mean, you want me to respect all these jokers? It's never going to happen. I have self-respect for the culture and for the history of my own people. If this is the game we're playing, we might as well sell the whole place. Look, I think the rant's over. So let me recap. If the rant is so much, I'm sorry. I do apologize that it's a rant, not a structured. But I hope if you followed me, you'd have gained what I wanted to say. Is that the king, as a custodian of the Yoruba culture, education, practices, as his authority from the people, not himself and what he wants to do. And that people that he's talking about, all the body of knowledge that we've got, the cosmology, this all the way back to antiquity in Nubia. So we're talking 7,000, 8,000 years. And that, when we make you an Oba, that is what we want you to respect. If you want to be so into Islam, please, we have fantastic mosques everywhere. Go there, live being a king. We've had it here in the UK. 2 kings have abdicated the throne, right? What was the issue? You cannot marry a commoner. That is it. Cultures are always rigid for a reason, because if we keep chopping and changing everything, there will be no semblance of reality. And that's what we're seeing now. No semblance of reality in Nigeria or in Yoruba land. And when they found commoner that they loved so much, and for love, I respect people who do things for love. The guy said, I don't want to be a king. Let me leave the institutions because I understand what the institutions need from me. I cannot give it to them. So if you know you can't, go to the mosque, put on your turban, stop being a king or Yoruba king. You don't have any role to play. You don't have any significance to me as a Yoruba man, as a Yoruba person. And if you're so much, in love with your Christianity, for God's sake, we have some of the biggest churches. Go there. Start your own. But leave Ishashe alone. Don't move the landmarks, the ancient landmarks. That's our identity. It goes beyond. Even those guys who are doing Ishashe do not understand that, like, nuclear weapons is not just brought out anytime. Ogun, Abenugongo, all of these things that you see that frightens you were supposed to be kept and used only when you are threatened with annihilation. So when the West was threatened Their very existence was threatened. They used a nuclear weapon, and they've used it only one time. What's the disintegration of Yoruba land that places all these powers in the hands of every Tom, Dick, and Harry? And the reason why you don't have some of it today is because those who are faithful to the system decided not to pass it on because they saw the rot that was going on. They saw the rot. Individualism. Individualism is never a part of the Yoruba or Moluabi code. No. So, you know what? That's what it boils down to. And because you're not doing this, it has massive effect on the environment, on the people, and the abject poverty they live in. And it does in two ways. There's no direct influence in using the resources that the king has. Even till today, the king has a voice. They know all the people doing illegal mining. Why do you want them to do illegal mining in your domain? Why don't you talk to the governor, talk to the local government and say, we want you to come in. We will fight for you to get a license. And we'll do what? We will support you. Now, don't pollute our rivers. Don't do this, don't do that. And we want 40%, 50% of all your employees to be people from this land. That's how you forge the progress of people. But when you want people to come and beg you, and you give the land to foreigners, Chinese, and they will decimate your land, create environmental negative impact, and leave you with the consequences. Once they've taken their stuff out, you are going to live with the consequences. And what that does is that's why you see people don't stay back. They leave because all of the opportunities they have has been decimated. So that is on the home side. Now, for us who are in diaspora, now a lot of us have pensions. We have personal savings. We could come in. And if you do, I've been doing some kind of dipstick research. A lot of the people I've spoken to are thinking about retiring to Portugal, retiring to Benin Republic, retiring to where there's semblance of law and order. They don't want to retire to a place where the monarch is a Muslim and is, he believes that his Islamic brothers are the first order of people that he should love, and he's given the Fulani herdsmen, he's taking money and giving them permission to roam his enclave, and they can kill people at will. And when they kill them, you just shout, and that's it. Is that where you think we're going to come back into? The wealth of Israel, you see, as small as Israel is, when there's war, all of the Israelis across the world will send money down. War is about resources. They send money down. Apart from the ones they get from these established, countries, they send money down individually. They have systems in place. You don't have. Your diasporans, they're your wealth of the future, not only in terms of resources, but in terms of knowledge that they can bring back into the system, the skill sets that they've retired with, that they can put back into the communities. Not everybody wants to live in a crazed place like Lagos. This is what you work with your local government chairman. The ex-while Alaafin of Oyo, Oba Alamidi, his son Skime. When he pushed him to do local government, I was brought the brief. I wrote everything for him. Ishaya, I did all of that. He's now in the House of Rep, 2 times, 3 times, or maybe he's gone to the Senate now. I don't know. They don't see these things. They are caught up in this, we need to go and take money. Look, we're not rats. If you have individual money, it's not going to resolve anything. The real wealth is in collective wealth. And collective wealth is built into your culture. And your culture dictates how your entire environment is supposed to be treated. Way before white people were shouting preservation, we had evil forest. Why do we tag them evil forest? because we don't want you to go and pollute it. They use all of these, little scare tactics to get people to preserve, stuff. And it worked. It worked. This is our knowledge. This is what the Chinese are using. This is what the Japanese are using. And that's how they develop so quickly. And that's why in the grand scheme of things, you're not likely to see development on that scale in Nigeria, because we have a mishmash of competing ideas, of organizational ideas. We don't have a simple, single organizational idea. When Innocent came out and I said, this is not going to fly, a lot of them just tagged me, Igbo, Eta, bigot, these idiots, low lives. I was looking at things from the point of innovation and innovation management. I spent money to go to school, man. It's assembly they're doing. Everybody can assemble now. If you go across the world, people are assembling cars. They just bring knockdown parts, bring it together. So you have a product. But having a product in the marketplace, is that what actually pushes the longevity of a brand? No. It's having what we call the long tail. What is the long tail? After sales service. Cultural communication with the people. So if you have Innocent and everywhere you drove your car, they have accredited maintenance and parts supply, and they look for a way to make sure that those parts are cheap and accessible. They will take over the market. Those are the long tails that you need to build, and that was not there. So people were just saying, buy the car out of the fact that I want to support Nigeria, I want to support an Igbo person. Nobody's going to do that. People are buying Toyota because the parts are cheap. I drove a 5 Series in Nigeria. I know when my mates are changing their own shock absorbers for 7,000, 8,000 naira, then in 2004, 2005, I was changing my own for 15,000 naira, which is a lot of money then. That's why people don't drive a lot of BMs in Nigeria. It's only for the upper class, and the upper class is just how many people are in there. The mass is not in there. It's down there that the mass is. Now, the Chinese have come into Nigeria. They have 3 different brands. I came for a Google project in November 2024. And we had to hire, this firm. They provided all of the vehicles we used, and with security and all of that. We were driven around in Chinese. It's a GAC. I think the brand is GAC. 4x4s everywhere. And it's not too bad. It's not too bad. And I asked those guys, it was a fraction of what they would get the European cars for. So, you know what? Those companies, because they are not assemblers only, they are OEM manufacturers. They'll be able to bring in parts. They'll be able to bring in parts. And they'll be able to offer after-sales service at different levels. In fact, they will build in your MOT. It's built into the amount you pay when you initially purchase the car. But, these guys just went to copy those ones. You see, all of this, cost-saving metrics is what the Chinese have been using, and it's from their culture. They plan for the future. The strategy is for the future because it's in the Chinese culture. When all of us were struggling with socialism in command, and we were in these little pockets and were polarized, I think it's Jinping. No, not Jinping. I think this former Chinese president. He said African leaders are foolish. Go and look at it. They asked him, why are they foolish? He said, it doesn't matter if the color of the cat is black, yellow, or red, as long as it catches mice. That's what he said. And what does that mean? He was saying that you Africans, you are stupid. You are too caught up in this Western education and worldview that told you that there's only one way. It's either you are a capitalist, or you are a communist, or you're a socialist. So the guy was saying that you don't need all of these little buckets in which you are placed. You need to think out of the box. whatever works for you, whatever puts food on your table, make sure people grow. That's what you need to pursue. And that was when China, under him, Deng Xiaoping, so that's the name, Deng Xiaoping. Deng Xiaoping said, you know what, go on, Shanghai was built that time, and that under said where they gave the West free hand, to do whatever they need to do. And they were busy stealing all of the templates. They're busy stealing technology. And today, they have moved past the phase in which you have to use their technology for people. They're developing what is theirs according to their own culture. So if they did not put their ancestral learnings in and culture into place, where would they have been today? Now, America is having problems because all the rare earth, minerals that you need to produce your B-52 planes, fighter jets, and drones and all of that, 80% to 70% is mined in China. And they've now gone throughout the world to understand where else these things are in the Congo. So their trade mission and diplomatic mission goes there, give people loans, it's based on what they knew about their resources, so that they can capture it away from the Western. So now the West is now saying, oh, all this, now we fight wars with drone, with technology, with AI and all of that. And they're finding out that China dominates 90% of the market. Now, Trump just signed, something, and for Pentagon is putting out billions of dollars to say, you know what, if you're going to build for us, or especially military grade, drones, it has to be no Chinese input. They out of 300 that contractors, they prune it down to 3. Those 3 are still finding out that they have Chinese components in their drones, and now it's going to take them 5, 6, 7 years to set up all of this one. So if there's a World War III tomorrow, China is gone. It's going to defeat everybody. So look, and this is all of this I'm saying is the Yorubas are losing out. Even in Nigeria, we're losing out massively. There's nobody that is thinking. So that's why I said Awolowo when I started this video. Since Awolowo, we never had any thinker. We have idiots. Look, we had hopes. Now I'm 50 going 51, and there's nothing Nigeria is going to do for me now. Even if everything just develops, I've lived half of my life by myself. It's for the guys who are coming behind us to see all of these things. A lot of us have invested in education, things that could actually, work for the country. The other day the Lagos State government came, innovation, they wanted to set up innovation on that the other guy, I can't remember his name, yanked him off my Facebook. And they were talking about the innovation that a whole Lagos was doing was actually setting up hubs. Basically what they have is co-working, spaces. Co-working spaces. Oh my God. Innovation is supposed to solve a problem. A particular problem. Do you know how many problems you've got in Lagos? You can't even number the streets properly. Anyway, so that's it, guys. Like someone said, if these Obas are not willing to change and to work for you, cut them off. It's not worth it. The system has to change to be able to work for you, and it has to be collective. And that's been, when people say, why are you against Tinubu since 2007? That's exactly what I mean. Awolowo did not even have the chance to unite, to take political control of all the Yoruba states. Tinubu did. And instead of him to put the Omoluabi code into thinking, the right thinking, he called himself the thinker. I just laugh. Race systems, Simple rate systems across the Yoruba states will give you a minimum of 20% lift in your economic output. Awolowo did what? He did it with roads. He built industrial areas. He built roads in the hinterland where the produce is coming from, and to get it into the cities where he's able to sell it. That was the thing he did. And he set up a board. Okay, if you're producing your cocoa, you're kind of like insulated from the fluctuating global prices. We as the government will buy it at a set price even before you plant. Isn't that good? Isn't that great? So it's in the interest of the government to make sure that there's no Fulani men that comes in because they've made a commitment to the farmers. People could not say, okay, all of this money that you're just wasting and pocketing, put some of it aside. If you want to decongest Lagos, you don't need to. A lot of people could be living outside. Well, I'm going to London after I finish this. London is about 1 hour, 20 minutes drive for me. I'm in London. People move out, fan out. And he said, I developed Lagos, I did this on Lagos, and it's stupid. Where is the interest of your own people in Lagos? Where is their interest? You beat them out. So you lost the election at the last election. You lost it in Lagos. When you have economic development in Yoruba land that does not prioritize Yoruba people, you're stupid. I live here. I've been around. I've been in a lot of projects, that's been done, and I see these things on a daily basis. There's no country, no system, nowhere in the world that prioritizes other people over their own people. No, none, zilch. It's only Yoruba land. You just leave everything to chance. And even Oba, there's so many things that could be done about it. It's a fantastic idea. People are still, but somebody came to my page and was talking about why are they having it as an Eid period, blah, 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 blah. I say, is that your preoccupation now? When that thing can be built into a massive, spectacle that would generate hundreds of millions of dollars, of pounds. I told my brother, you knew somebody, I said, tell them to get in touch with me. If you're even willing to share some of your information, nobody is interested. That's the state we are in Nigeria. Even people who don't know, oh, I've got a degree, I can do this, I can do that, and all of that. Okay, go. You fail miserably. So, guys, if you get anything out of this, I want you to understand that the collective wealth is your wealth. Whether it's being run by a governor or Oba, because they're all in collusion. You need to understand that you have a stake in this. You have only one life. And you have a right to tell them if they're not going to run any system, political, spiritual, economic, well-being, to favor you and to favor your sons, your grandkids, your kids. It's your duty to make sure that it fails. End of story. Because that's what people do elsewhere. Every year they want to do election, US, Europe, the issue is always immigrants. That's what we face here. It doesn't matter. Anything their leaders do, take the immigrants out first. We don't want them to have anything. You have to give us. So if you're not able to do that in your own country, that has been polluted, sorry for that word, that has been invaded by all Tom, Dick, and Harry, taking all your resources. They want to watch about $100,000 to set up a system, and they start taking your money. All you just want to do is consume. Where is the education is going to come from? I even heard some people are learning Chinese. You're learning to speak Chinese. How stupid. It's good it looks good in the, don't get me wrong, I know this thing, but when I make my comments, I look at the end game. Did the Chinese start to study English when they were about to, to do what they need to do? Because You need to teach your own people. I submitted a proposal to them at Oyo State then, in which you have a database in which all of these, I think, will be taught in all the local languages and all of that. That was way before you have some of these brilliant chaps on Facebook teaching physics, chemistry in the local languages. We submitted it long ago. They're not interested. Upon more, they're not interested. They're interested in the money they're gonna make from providing that device, and that device has only a lifespan. Even if you use it very well, the lifespan of 12 months is out of date. When you can have a database system in which that is accessible from anywhere in the world, and you can know who's accessing it, you can rate them, you can look at the back end and do all of that. No, they're not interested. Nobody's interested. Everybody just have believe that I have a certificate and my idea is going to be the winning idea. And when they go there, they don't even have a clue what they're doing. They don't even know what it is, how the shoe start, and all of that stuff. So it's about Yoruba land, and you can begin to see why I say get out of Nigeria. Because we're all working at crossroads. It doesn't matter what they sell to you as one Nigeria. Just check how everybody's working. It is the preserve of Muslims to take over power. It's a preserve of Christians to want to hold on to power. So everybody's like fighting every time. There's no central organizing idea. And the only platform that's going to provide us the organizing idea in Yoruba land is our culture. That's where I'm going, is our culture. And you have to be able to leave your religion at the gate. When we finish talking, take your religion and take it back. Whatever you do with it in your private space, none of my business. Right? Even in the Bible, Jesus told you that some of these prostitutes that you want to make fun of, they will get to heaven way before you. That should tell you something. So all of these Sadducee, Pharisee ways of looking at life and religion, I broke out of that. Even you, Christian, what heaven are you bringing to bear on earth? Most of your leaders are just taking money. Do you realize that after, I've been there before, after you pay your tithe, you don't even pay government the amount that you pay in tax to the government. You pay to the church. And they pocket all of that money. What social things do they deliver for the people? Abject poverty. I've been in Winners. I know what happens, at the back end. People sold their cars and all of that. They say, oh, you cannot go out and buy it. I went there, and back in the days, and those pastors were just, in fact, some of the pastors were saying the others were chancing them to the cars and all that. And if the amount of stories you're going to hear that they just cover up. And you say, is this religion? Is this a religion? Jeez, I don't want to be part of that nonsense. If you read your Bible, just read Bible, and you want to judge these people based on that. No, none of them is going to heaven. Trust me. So it is quite wrong for us. Where is this revolution going to start? We're all going to say, if you're not for Isheshe, Yoruba culture, Yoruba scholarship, study, don't come near this tool. Live your religion. And if you have a religion, we're not saying don't do your religion. You have to leave that religion alone and practice. Do it in your bedroom. But when you come out, you're a custodian of the Yoruba culture. With everything that's involved in all its totality. That's how we can preserve that area. And that is where our economic salvation is going to come out of. Right? Thank you.